The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to make a good first impression, or how to make those first impressions count. And I'll talk more about why first impressions matter so much, but often our interactions at the start are superficial. We see someone, we make a judgment, and then if that judgment is wrong, then it can take us a long time to correct that misinterpretation. So far better to start off on a good grounding and then build on that, on your reputation and your influence as a speaker or a trainer, than start off on the wrong foot. So I'm going to share with you some strategies on how to make your first impressions count, how to make a good first impression as a speaker or trainer. So Peter Dew's my name. I specialize in public speaking, training, and coaching, presentation skills, and being more confident and effective when you get before an audience. How to participate. Some of you have participated in webinars before, so this will be going over things. Ask questions as we go. Don't wait for me to pause and say, do you have any questions? Take notes, add comments. Think and apply what I say to your own unique situation. And one way to do that is to think about a previous presentation. Is there anything you would have done differently to make a good first impression? Or think about a training or presentation you've got coming. Is there anything that you would do differently to enhance that presentation? This is the application of the knowledge. And I record my webinars. If you have additional questions, email me afterwards. I'll be quite happy to help you out if I can in any way. So why worry about those first impressions? Why make your first impressions count? And it just comes down to, in reality, it's the psychology of persuasion, the psychology of influence. We all know that people make a judgment on the first 5 to 7 seconds. Females judge quicker than males. And Malcolm Gladwell did some research around job interviews, and generally within the first 30 seconds, the interview panel has formed an impression of the applicant based on their soft skills. So the honesty, integrity, authenticity, trust, reliability. They've got your CV, they've got your experience, and they're looking for someone's softer skills, and they form that judgment within the first 15 to 30 seconds. So you then spend 45 minutes speaking at a job interview, but if the first impression's wrong, you will struggle to correct that. And what they did was they showed that first 15 seconds, 30 seconds of video to random people down the street and got them to rate those applicants, and they got the same outcomes within 85% correlation as the ratings the interview panel did after a full 45-minute interview. So they saw the whole 45 minutes, and then those people saw the first 30 seconds. There was a match on what people thought. So make sure your first impressions count. And the other thing is, from an influence and persuasion training, asking people to change, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And you need to give that impression of trust and honesty up front. And so all of this comes down to congruence. Your first impressions, what you say, how you look, how you behave, all align up with your message and what you're saying. It's about congruence. So here's some ways to make your first impression count. So I've got 4 things I'm going to speak about, expand a little bit. The first one is the level of how you dress. and how that matches your audiences. The second thing is about your body language, how you come across, how you look. Bearing in mind this public speaking presentation can be daunting, can be nerve-wracking. The rock star Adele has terrible stage fright, but still displays confident body language. Your opening comments, so these are the first 30 seconds, they give first impressions. And your ability to demonstrate a cultural awareness. You know the culture of the audience. You know what's the right things to say, what things will be seen as offensive. All of this helps give that first impression. So let me go through these one by one. The level of how you dress. So the rule is when you go to a presentation, when you go to a gig or when you go to a training, as a speaker, as a presenter, I need to be the best dressed in the room. Just by a smidgen. So I don't want to be overdressed. I don't want to be underdressed. And when I run my workshops, I generally don't wear a tie. But I don't rock up in sneakers, and I don't rock up in shorts. Now, at some times that would be appropriate. I'm off to one of the mine sites on Monday, so I will be wearing steel cap boots and a bright yellow high-vis safety vest. Everyone else will be wearing the same thing. I have some smart blue trousers on, not sort of dirty jeans that would be accustomed to the worksite. And my jacket is really clean, my high vis. It's not covered in red dust. So that's kind of matching the level that's appropriate and making sure that, you know, you look credible, you look the part. So don't overdress. Now I'm going to use Perth's Lord Mayor, previous Lord Mayor, maybe current Lord Mayor, Lisa Scafidi. I saw her on TV once, and Lisa opens up lots of buildings and presents at a lot of seminars around the city of Perth. So she dresses really, really well, a high-level dresser. I saw her on TV addressing a group of construction workers in their hard hats and their shorts, and the disconnect between how she, as a speaker, and the audience was huge. Now, that's not saying that Lisa's done anything wrong, because that's probably the third item on her agenda, and perhaps after that she was opening up the new library in the city of Perth. So she needed to dress at a high level for that day. All I'm saying is the disconnect to the looker, to the onlooker, and maybe even to the people in the presentation, the disconnect between how she looked and how they looked was huge. And as an onlooker, I could see the difference. Do your research. So who's going to be in the room? What's the level that they're going to dress at? When I go and speak to lawyers or accountants, the tie goes on. Don't underdress. I think the classic for that was when our previous speaker, several back speakers for the House in Federal Parliament, Peter Slipper, Liberal but aligned with Labor, was asked to address the graduation ceremony of one of the military colleges in Queensland, and everyone is wearing, you know, their military suits, their ties, their shoes are polished. He gets off a helicopter in jeans and flannelette shirt, open, no coat, looks like he's come straight from doing cattle work on his farm, and is the keynote speaker. It was on TV. He got criticised badly because he didn't take the time or wasn't courtesy enough to dress to the level that the audience expected, and it looked bad. I always say have a backup plan, and my backup plan is I carry around a few extra things. I mentioned the tie. So 90% of the groups I speak to, they don't wear ties. Lawyers and accountants do wear ties. When I'm invited to speak in-house, I will send an email beforehand and ask who's going to be there, what's the level of dress. When I run an open workshop and I don't know who's going to turn up, I will carry a tie in my small training bag. And as I'm meeting and greeting people, if I notice that someone is wearing a tie, I can just quickly say, look, just excuse me for a moment, and I'll go to the bathroom and I'll brush my teeth, put the tie on, and I'll come back appropriately dressed. I have a suit coat that often sits on the back of the chair. So if I notice people are wearing sports coats and really smart no ties, I will start presenting with my coat. If I notice everyone's casual, then I can take my coat off as I'm meeting and greeting and put it on the back of the chair, and then I can start from a still smartly dressed level but not overdressed. So your first impressions count. What level are you going to dress for your next presentation? How are you going to know? Do your research and you'll look a lot better. Focus on positive and confident body language. First impressions count. So let's say it's a big group. Let's say it's an important group to you. Let's say you're very nervous, but you want to make a first positive impression. Make sure you look confident. Make sure you have good body language. And the dress adds to that body language as well. Smile. If you were coaching me and you were telling me how to walk on stage, how to breathe, how to hold my shoulders, how to hold my head, should I smile, should I frown, should I fidget, you would know what to tell me. So these are things we have control over. Even though inside we may be very nervous, we may have butterflies, we can stand up, smile, we can look positive, we can look confident. Our body language can do the things that indicate that we want to be there, the smiling, the energy we bring to the stage. So some things to consider. How do others see you? Have you had feedback? When you walk on stage, do you look calm and do you look confident? I mentioned Adele, the rock singer. She is really nervous. She has terrible stage fright. She looks so confident. She looks so calm. So we don't know that level of stage fright unless she talks about it. Ringo Starr, the drummer for the Beatles, is another person who suffers from stage fright. So get an idea of, do you look confident? You will know your level of nerves. You will know what's racing in your mind. But if you're looking calm and collected and confident, that makes a great first impression. What do you look like in video? Why don't you video yourself? I did a keynote presentation in Singapore in May, and I've just received the video. And I was not well and I was really nervous, and this was important. And afterwards, everyone said to me, so this is the feedback, that I did a really great job, a great closing keynote for day one. And things didn't work out how I wanted to. And I looked at the video and I'm just walking on stage looking really calm and really confident. I surprised myself. So there's things that we can do to look confident. And part of it is faking it until you become it, or fake it until you make it. So the quick steps would be stand upright, breathe deep and low. So when you put your hands on your tummy, are they going in and out with that slow, deep breathing? Or are your shoulders going as you do that shallow, nervous breathing? Are your feet still and steady? Not dancing from side to side, not doing a little soft shoe shuffle. You can plant your feet firmly in the middle of the stage, slightly apart, then grow roots. Think of them as tree roots. Grow roots into the ground and be really steady, and then move with purpose. This doesn't mean you're not nervous. This doesn't mean your mind's not racing, but these are things you can do to look confident. Stand upright. The smile is infectious. The smile gives you good chemicals, as does the deep breathing. I love the work from Amy Cuddy, and she talks about presence. Her TED Talk is also very popular, how your body language can define who you are or shapes who you are. It's worthwhile watching Amy Cuddy, TED Talk, and her book on presence. It's how our body, our stance, and our chemicals can make a great first impression, and we don't need to get rid of the nerves. We can just focus on doing the best we can with our knowledge, our expertise, but if our body language and our physiology and our breathing, the things we have control over, if that looks confident, that makes a really great first impression. Just going to pause for a moment. Are there any questions? What happens if your hands are shaking and your voice quivers? So, yeah, clearly you're on stage and you're doing everything to make a good first impression, but your nerves are giving you away. Here's what I've learned, and I think this is true across the board. Most times people don't see your hand shake. Most people don't hear the quiver in your voice. Now, if you're presenting to a group of colleagues that you speak with every day, they may notice a little bit of nervousness in your voice or your hands, but the general audience don't know you. And they're not there to look for the quiver in your voice or the shake of your hand. They're there to take away your message, the knowledge that you're going to give them. So if you can learn to dismiss, or if you can learn to go ahead despite the quiver, despite the nerves, then I think you'll get away with it 90% of the time. If it's so big that you can't hide it, and the beetroot red face that sometimes happens, then maybe you can disclose it up front. I call that the elephant in the room. So thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm actually quite nervous and I don't enjoy public speaking and my face goes red. Please don't worry about it. I'm not having a heart attack. What I want to share with you today is 4 steps that you can do to make a great first impression. So I've just announced that my face has gone red. I'm not worried about it. You don't need to worry about it. Focus on the 4 steps that I'm going to give you to make a great first impression. So that's called announcing the elephant in the room. That's if it's so marked you cannot hide it. But the little quiver, the little idiosyncrasies, most people don't notice. My elephant generally is that I stutter, so I need to mention that when I'm doing a keynote that I am a person who stutters, so you will expect some stutters during my presentation. Thank you for that question. Moving on. Give strong, important opening remarks. It's called the rule of primacy. First 30 seconds matters. Grab attention. Create relevance. Let them know they're in the room, in the right room for their issue. So this is about the first 30 seconds. Rule of primacy, Milo Frank said you've got 30 seconds to get your message across. You're probably aware that most TV commercials are 20 to 30 seconds. Most news stories are about 8 seconds with the intro from the journalist. Then they switch to the field, they interview the person, and then 8 seconds or so to wrap up. So 30 seconds is that time bite. So create relevance up front. Why should I listen? So in other words, what are you going to do for me? What's in it for me? What problem are you going to solve? If you want to make a good first impression, make it about the audience. Give them something, give them hope, give them reason to listen to you. Give them those gems that make their ears prick up and they say, wow, I'm looking forward to listening to this, as opposed to a traditional 2 or 3 minute boring introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Dew, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. Can I ask you to turn your mobile phones off? The toilets are out the back door, male to the right, female to the left. Morning tea will be at about 10:35. And if the fire alarm goes, please follow me to the muster point. And I think that's just about everything. So now I'll get into my content. Flip it. Grab attention first, 30 seconds, make them listen, make them realize they're in the right place, give them something to look forward to. You can then step back and say, so thanks for inviting me. But what I really want to talk about is 4 ways to make a great first impression. And most of your audiences are selfish. They're there out of self-interest. So on this webinar, no one's on the webinar that I know of, I'm looking at the names, to pat me on the back, to cheer me on, to rile me up. Most of you are there to learn from me. Most of you are there because you have interests, you have needs that you want me to satisfy. So if you cater to that, what's in it for me in the first 30 seconds, then you're going to make a great first impression. Moving on quickly, I'm probably going to end this webinar 5 minutes early. It's going quite smoothly. Demonstrate cultural awareness. This is first impressions. I always like to acknowledge the traditional landowners when I move around. I mentioned one of the mining sites on Monday, so that will be north of Newman, and that'll be the Nepali people. And so I'll respect past and present custodians of this land, the Nepali people, and let them know that it's a pleasure to be here on Nepali land. When I go to Bendigo, it's the Dja Dja Rung people. That's just a cultural awareness. There are other ways of doing cultural awareness, and I'll just reach out my business card. I mentioned I was in Singapore speaking. When someone gives you their business card with 2 hands, don't reach out and grab it with one. The correct way to do it is, of course, to receive it with 2 hands and have a look, have a read. This is Southeast Asia. This is Singapore, Japanese, Korean, Indian, Chinese, the way we hand business cards. So that's just being culturally aware. I'm speaking in Manila on the 30th, 2 times, on the 30th and the 31st of July, to 2 different conferences, one to a speakers conference and one to a leaders conference. I probably won't mention the basketball game, and you probably can't have missed the brawl. It was probably a punch-up between the Philippine national team and the Australian national team. It's embarrassing for both countries and both sides. So to be culturally aware, I probably should not mention that at this stage. That's just, being culturally aware. So some tips around being, who's in the room? Do you need to acknowledge the traditional landowners? Give a cultural compliment. When you hand over the business card, when you receive it, that is a cultural compliment. Use inclusive language. Say how are we, and what you, as opposed to I, and what I know, and what I think. It really can help to make a good first impression if you're culturally inclusive. Do your preparation around this. So when I say who's in the room, this can make a big difference. I was speaking to a young Aboriginal man over east, and he sometimes is asked to do the traditional welcome. I can acknowledge the traditional landowners. I have no right to welcome people to the Nepali land. He is able to welcome people, and he does it quite frequently. He's calm, he's relaxed, it doesn't bother him. He knows it off by heart. He speaks the language, I think yorta yorta, and just cool, no problem. And one day he was asked, so he stood up. It takes him about 2 minutes, he says, and he completely lost it through him. Fumbled through his words, turned bright red, really struggled. And the reason was, sitting in the front row, eyeballing him, was Prime Minister Julia Gillard, Prime Minister of the day, Julia Gillard. And he did not know that she was going to be in the room. He did not know that she was going to be present. So this is about, I guess, another topic doing your preparation, but who's in the room? And would your dress change if the Prime Minister was in the room? And knowing in the room enables you to not only be culturally appropriate, but be prepared for maybe some unexpected events, such as the Prime Minister. So there's 4 steps to make a good first impression. Match the level of how your audience dresses. Focus on positive and confident body language. Give strong opening comments, appropriate comments, what's in it for me. Demonstrate cultural awareness. If you do all of those 4 things, you'll make a fantastic first impression. All of those 4 things don't come automatically. They come with preparation, they come with homework, they come with doing your research, they come with talking to the event organizer, talking to people who are going to attend. Events coming up, I've got workshops everywhere. I've got Bunbury, I've got lots of workshops in Perth, I've got vacancies for all those workshops. We've also got workshops in Darwin later on in the year. So please share that information. Next webinar, the importance of congruence, and I briefly mentioned congruence today. Making a good first impression is part of being congruent with your message. That's on the 13th of July. Same time, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. West Australian time. So remember, first impressions count. First impressions matter. You can practice them. You can make a good first impression, and then you can just focus on being present, giving your message, and serving the people in the room. Bye for now.